This is Jeff Tamburello, the broker owner of Steelbridge Realty, here to give you a mid-year update on the 2016 Lee County, Florida residential market. Data was exported from the MLS and public records. We trend it with Microsoft Excel. Unless otherwise stated, all the charts contain residential assets. Basically, you have two choices in any market. You wait for opportunities to just happen, or you make them happen. Success comes to you as you plan, implement, and measure. It's really critical within the real estate market. There's always money moving, there's always the ability to do business. You just have to understand where the market is at that current point. Really wanted to help frame a narrative on the current market. The real estate market is a phrase used to describe the overall economic state of real estate based largely on supply and demand. The real estate market typically moves through four phases before going back and repeating again. I got this recently from this exact terms from a Harvard blog post, which I found to be pretty good. Phase one is recovery. Phase two is expansion. Phase three is hyper supply. Think of '05 and 6, and then recession, which was 2000, mid 2007 to about 2010. Here's a chart showing what was going on. Phase one, the recovery. During this phase of the real estate cycle, which has no real beginning, we are just picking an arbitrary starting point because it really is just one cycle that goes and goes and goes. The market is recovering from the last downturn. This really was about August of 2008. At that point, our pricing stabilized. You had August of 2008, you had a median price of 85,000. In August of 2009, we flirted with that median price again, but we really never, that was the true bottom, was August of 2008. Now, the expansion part. This is at the point where the market's better. I believe residentially, this is where we're at now. Businesses are once again adding employees. While we don't have a lot of the jobs we want, most people that I know that want a job can get one. Home prices began to rise, triggered by supply by climbing demand, and we're seeing that now. Hyper supply. This was 5 and 6. This was at the point where the boom time. Builders were supplying a large amount of the supply, and it was really based on speculation. Phase four recession, finally the house of cards built by the phase 2 and 3 collapses. Building projects that seemed so promising just a few years earlier weren't able to sell. And ironically enough, Moody River is kind of a perfect thing for this. It came out, market crashed, it languished along. Once the recovery hit, Moody River is essentially sold out. There's really not much left in there. But if you go back 6 years, Moody River Estates, there was just vacant lots everywhere. So what market are we in today? What you got to understand is that there's a lot of sub-markets within the market. And for commercial real estate, where would you put it? It's definitely a different place than the residential housing market. And the rental market is as hot as I've ever seen it. I have never seen a hotter rental market for residential. So even within the market, you've got to differentiate that you're going to have different phases of the market that are in different places. Generally, commercial lags 18 to 24 months behind residential. So sales counts and volume, lower or higher. For 2015, from 2016, and this is the data through the end of June, we were down 8% in volume. Sales counts, we had 12% less sales counts. So we do have a declining volume and declining sales counts. Kind of gives you an idea year over year of where's good and where's bad. Everywhere in the red has got a decrease in volume. Everywhere in the black is increasing in volume. And you got St. James City, 13%. Lehigh Acres up 16. Lehigh Acres statistically is one of the stablest markets I know of, and that's up 16% in volume with the 3% reduction in sales counts. You have Captiva's breaking even, Cape Coral's breaking even. Alva's up 69%. Alva is one of the hottest growing markets in the county right now because there's great affordable inventory. You can have a nice house on acreage for a pretty fair price. And North Fort Myers is up 3.7% as well. Supply and demand. This chart, the black line is the average sales price. The red line are the sales counts. And it's really kind of shows you that as the price goes high, the sales counts go low. Market starts to crash, starts pulling people in as the prices get low. Market hit a point where right here, everybody said, oh my God, I want one. And then up the counts went. And now the counts are starting to come back down to earth because of the prices going up. It's just supply and demand. At some point, when the prices get high enough, you start pricing people out of the market, which is happening in some parts of the market. Distressed market update. Our negative price pressure came from distressed sales in the last cycle. Now, this is exported from public records. This is all mortgage-related list pendants, and this is from January of 2013 on. We're pretty much in the new normal here. This is where we've been, and where we're going to continue to go until we kind of lever up again. This shows the last cycle, just for clarity to show you what we've went through. Now, what's pricing done? Pricing's still okay in spite of the lower volume. You've got the average price in the market's up 4%. The median price is up 8%. This is just showing pricing from January of '01 forward, just for clarity, give you an idea of what we went through and where we currently are in relation to the peak as well. Bubbles of activity. This is a chart we do at Steelbridge Realty that kind of shows us where the market is. Right now in 2016, which is the red line, about 160 is the peak of the market, with most of the activity being in the probably the 290 to the 50 range. That's kind of the sweet spot of the market, with definitely 160 being where the most attention is. And you can look and see from 2015, that's shifted over as prices have rose. Above a half million, really not much to, and I think that's where a lot of the volume is coming off. We're just not getting the sales above a half million like we were last year. Current sales patterns. Now, when I seen this, I got a little worried because our pricing is a perfect match for '07. But when you look at our sales counts, where '07 was so particularly damaging is it was the season that never happened. This was really the beginning of a crashing market. While we did have some issues, which we're going to discuss in the next slide, we recovered our sales counts. When I look right here, we're missing, we had a reduction in price, and we really just had some duress in the market. And you got to realize February sales counts are a result of January contracts, and March contracts are a result of February contracts. What you had there is you had a tornado, you had some really odd weather in January, and I also think we're feeling the effects of all the coverage of the LACO discharges. Opportunity or lack thereof. If you own a house in one of these zip codes and you're thinking of selling, you have a very good chance of selling it. 33976, which on the recording of this video, we're selling a house on 13th Street Southwest tomorrow at 150 actually, which is well above the average sale. But there's 1 month's inventory in that market. When I look at 33990, 3 months inventory. Keep going down the list. There's 33903, there are 4 months inventory within the market. 33917, there's 3 months. The big issue that I see is that you've got an average list price and an average sale. So generally the expectations are high on some sellers, but when a seller meets the current comps, the house tends to trade very quickly. Cape Coral is a base indicator. You could have timed the entire last market by the Cape Coral lot market. If the Cape Coral lot market stays on the current trajectory, it should surpass last year in counts and volume just barely, but that's a really good thing when a market is holding its volume. Showing you saltwater lots. Saltwater prices are still up. Now, freshwater really has kind of peaked in 2014. Now, bear in mind, it's not a huge reduction, and this is on average. It does take into account different asset types. But Cape Coral freshwater lots are actually trading at about a 3 or 4% reduction in price from the 2014. And dry lots have kind of flattened out. This is also, there's also an issue with freshwater and dry lots. There's only so many of them, and a lot of them have already traded, and some of what's trading is just not as nice as what traded before. Weather and disaster, something you always have to keep in mind in Florida, have long affected our real estate. Hurricanes have marked the end of a lot of cycles here. You can go back to the 20s and see that. And as well, we had about a 3-year period here where we had a whole bunch of hurricanes that really kind of affected the sentiment within the cycle. Another example is a BP oil spill. It really knocked the wind out of the market. You have to factor in terror acts because that affects confidence. You always kind of have to watch for random events that can become a sentiment changer. Food for thought. If you had some money during a bad economy, with bad weather and a much higher tax rate, would you stay there? Only if you really don't have any other choice. So even if the economy was to take a turn, I think we're going to be fine here in Southwest Florida. Things to watch. We will not produce a year-over-year increase in volume. This is why I'm watching this monthly now. Do we start to beat the previous year's monthly year-over-year from July going forward, which would show we're starting to make up with what we lost in season? If the volume continues to recede, when does pricing follow it is a big question. So it's really why the volume needs to be watched. What does a seller holding out for 2005 do? Well, you really have to examine, why am I selling? Where am I going? What am I going to do with the money? If you want to sell immediately, then you price in today's comps. And then there's another issue for landlords. A lot of we have some investors that we sold 30 and 40 houses to when the market was so affordable. And they have a large capital gain they could take, but then what are you going to do to get an acceptable year and a yield anywhere else? Because CDs and T-bills, in some cases, are paying under 1%. So I appreciate you watching this video. If you have any questions or thoughts, give us a call at the office, 239-694-3300. My extension's 102. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can always click the link below to go to our website. Have a great day.